Howdy, everybody. Welcome to Mr. Barron's Wild World of Coding. You, over the past couple of months, have learned how to do some pretty fun stuff in the course of our class. You've learned how to play around with class data types to simulate things. You've recently learned how to use if statements to actually have your computer make decisions for you. And now I want to give you another tool today that is pretty similar to an if statement in the way that it operates, but it allows us to add some new flair to a piece of code. So I have a kind of chunk of code that'll seem pretty familiar to you here today. Scanner scan equals new scanner, system.out.println, enter your password, string password equals scan.next line. So as you can probably tell, this is the beginning of a program where you might input your password. And this is what it would look like from the computer's perspective. It might say something like if password, or this is a string, so we use dot equals. And then we'll put in our password. So my password to all my accounts is Rainbow Kitty 47, if you really want to try that out at some point. And if that's right, maybe it'll say something like access granted. So we know how this code works already. Our code runs. Ooh, I'm missing something here. Yeah, there we go. Our code runs. It asks us for a name. And of course, I'm throwing some sort of error here. And if I type it in right, it'll say, hey, good job. But if I give the wrong password, like if I gave maybe lowercase Rainbow Kitty 47, it doesn't really do anything. That was my one shot. I got logged out of the program. Now, this isn't how computers really work, is it? You don't just get one shot to open up your program and put in your password before. And if you do it wrong, like the computer doesn't shut down then, like it's done running the script. It gives you more than one chance to check for a particular object. And so instead of an if statement, we have something called a while loop. A while loop. You might have seen this before if you've taken a previous class at Heron or Riverside. They pop up in the robotics class. But as you might guess, the purpose of a while loop is to run while something continues to be true, rather than if it's true once. I'll say that again. The purpose of a while loop is to run while something continues to be true, rather than to run just once. So just like an if statement, it has these parentheses that take a Boolean value inside of it. And it's got these brackets that are going to run while a particular thing is true. Remember, password.equals Rainbow Kitty 47 is a Boolean statement that returns either true or false. And I'm going to modify this program real quick. I'm going to say, rather than have it run when my password equals Rainbow Kitty 47, I want it to run as long as my password doesn't equal Rainbow Kitty 47. I do that by putting the exclamation point in front of it, just like I learned how to do during our last class when we studied truth tables. And I'm going to write something like try again. And I'm going to prompt the user to re-input the exact same variable, the specific variable password with scan.nextLine, such that this thing is updated. Such that this thing is updated again. And the interesting thing is that when my code in a while loop comes to the end of the statements that I've written here, it prints out try again, then it prints out scan.nextLine. It goes back to the top of the while loop and it runs again. It goes back to the top of the while loop and it runs again. And it's going to continue to run until the entire statement up here proves false. And because I have the exclamation point in front of it, the statement will prove false when I eventually enter Rainbow Kitty 47. Maybe I want to do something like this. After that password has been received, I'll finally say access granted. Outside of the bounds of my while loop, because when my code enters in to this while loop right here, it will continue to run these 2 lines of code so long as the statement up here is true, and it'll only move on once I eventually put in the correct password here. Let's see how it works. I run my code. It says enter your password. I'm going to type the wrong password again, Rainbow Kitty 47 underscore. Oh, I got to try again. Maybe it was my other password, watermelon 765 go. Try again. I got it wrong. Oh wait, it was the Rainbow Kitty one. Just with those capital letters. And now my access has been granted and my code is free to run. While loops can take place with any Boolean value, just like an if statement inside of their parentheses. One of the most common places that we see them is actually in numeric calculations. And I want to give you a little example of how they work with numeric calculations. Say we had some sort of integer, like an x equals 9. And I had a program where I was really looking to turn numbers that are 9 or that are below 20 up to 20. Let's say I wanted some sort of counting program where I wanted to count up to 20. Well, if I want to count, I can put x plus plus in here to add 1 to it. I can display what x is every time I run it. And you'll see that the code repeats itself until the condition becomes false. It's going to run until x is less than 20 is no longer true, which means it'll run until x is equal to 20. This code will add 1 at a time and print out the function. And that's what we call this thing a loop, is because it loops through the set of instructions until the condition is met, instead of just running just once. We started out with int x equals 9. This condition is true. 9 is less than 20. So it adds 1 to it and prints it out. And we see that the number is 10. Then my code heads back up to the statement. Is 10 still less than 20? Oh, yeah, it is. Okay, add 1 to it again. Now it's 11. I'm going to print that out. Is 11 still less than 20? Oh, yeah, it is. I'm going to print that out. Does that all the way up until x plus plus makes this number 20. Prints it out to the page. And then goes back to check this condition one more time and realizes, oh, x is equal to 20. It's not less than 20 anymore. I can't run this code. This code will run whenever the statement in the parentheses is true and until the statement in the parentheses is true. Those are the couple things that you need to keep in mind. While loops run whenever the case is true and until the case is false. It'll continue to run while the case is true until the case becomes false. So what I want to finish this video off with is showing you two common errors. Let's say we had a similar program to before. But maybe this time I wanted to count down to 20. Let's say I was hoping to count down to 20. Instead of having a number that was bigger than 20 or less than 20 at the start, what if I was expecting a number that was bigger than it? And I was going to take one away from it each time. Well, if I put a number in that's less than 20, just like an if statement, it checks the condition every single time before it runs the code. So if I run this code right now with the number x, and the condition I'm checking is x is greater than 20 in order to count down, you can see my code run and it literally doesn't do anything. Because x is greater than 20 is false the first time this runs, it never even gets to work inside of the place inside of my loop. Call this a base case. That means that like if your code doesn't run at all. So one thing that you'll want to keep a lookout for is being able to look at a while loop and identify where it's not even going to call the loop instructions at all. That can happen if your initial instructions are false the whole way through. Now, there's something else you probably want to look out for here. Let's say that I went back to my original program. Int x equals 9, while x is I had a less than 20 before. X plus plus, the number is x. I'm going to change that program real quick since this x is greater than 20. And now it's going to add to a number if x is greater than 20. That's what our program does right here. It adds to a number if x is greater than 20. Now we're in another situation where if I run my code with x equaling 9, it doesn't do anything because x is less than 20. This code is always false. But what will happen if I take my code and I change it to 29, and then I have while x is greater than 20? System.out.println the number is. It's already greater than 20. So it'll do that and it'll add 1 to it, and then it becomes 30, right? So it'll go back to the top and 30 is greater than 20. So it'll go and run our code inside again. It'll add another 1 to it, 31, 32. Pause the video for a second. Think to yourself, what will happen if this code runs? What will happen if this code runs? Now that you've unpaused it, let's see what happens. X starts out as 29. This code loops through and adds 1 to it each time if it's greater than 20. If I go ahead and hit the run button, well, I get this. This is a condition where your while loop is always true. So your computer just continues to run through it as much as it can until it eventually throws what's called a stack overflow error, where there are too many numbers saved into memory or the code is lost. So the reason I point this out is because one thing we need to keep in mind with while loops is that it runs only when the case is true and until the case is false. You've seen a situation here where we have a while loop where the condition is always true. In an if statement, that doesn't matter because it only runs it once, but it's something that you need to work out with while loops. And I'm hoping that you can identify that behavior when we get back on Thursday, because we're going to start to look at the way that while loops act and how we might want to use them in code. Thanks for watching, folks.